He could turn over every single bit of his chemical weapons to the international community in the next week. Turn it over, all of it, without delay, and allow a full and total accounting for that. But he isn't about to do it, and it can't be done, obviously.
All right, folks. Notwithstanding the fact that he said it's not going to happen and it can't be done, notwithstanding the fact that the White House and the administration first reacted to this as a gaffe, said it was a gaffe, said that the secretary misspoke, now John Kerry's being hailed as a genius because he inadvertently put his foot in his mouth. I guess that's how you usually do it, inadvertently, and answered a question, didn't come up with this on his own. The question was, how could Assad prevent being bombed? And he said, I don't know, let him hand over his chemical weapons to the international community, but it can't be done. Well, Russia said not so fast. Syria said not so fast. We like that. Joining us now to talk about all this and specifically to talk about Al-Qaeda and why this president sees no need to draw a red line on Al-Qaeda, only on Assad, is our friend, of course, Andy McCarthy, former U.S. Assistant Attorney, and, of course, the author of Spring Fever, The Illusion of Islamic Democracy. Hello, my friend.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine.
You sound like you're undercover today, like under the covers.
Oh, I wish I was.
No, that's much better. No, the sound was far away. I'm only teasing you. All right, so first of all, Kerry makes a big mistake here, goes rogue, if you will, off script as Secretary of State. He's not allowed to make up policy. And now he said something that I guess Obama's going to have to spin it into something he might have to live with, whether he wants to or not.
Yeah, I wonder with Kerry sometimes if they've managed to clone Biden.
But make him look French.
Right. But if he's speaking, he's misspeaking. I think, Steve, you know, the interesting thing about this is I argued and have argued for a while now that this whole chemical weapons thing is a pretext and that Obama has wanted to jump in on the side of the Muslim Brotherhood and its Al-Qaeda affiliated rebels all along. And they've used this episode, which I think, again, we still haven't gotten solid proof on it, of chemical weapons in order to justify doing what he can't make a straight-faced argument that he would like to do, namely that it's in America's national interest somehow to jump in on the Muslim Brotherhood side against Assad. So the chemical weapons thing was just a pretext anyway, and I think they proved it today because Kerry, as you say, off the cuff said, sure, if he surrenders his chemical weapons, then, you know, there's no need to do this. So, of course, the next thing, you know, they were agreeing to surrender their chemical weapons, and the White House was saying, well, Kerry was just making a rhetorical point.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't think the Secretary of State, who's out there supposedly making or enunciating to the world U.S. national security policy and the considerations that we have, that we're going through as we consider whether to go to war against another country, a rhetorical point?
Yeah, it's insane. Well, there's a report now that Senator Dianne Feinstein, has now said that she welcomes Russia's proposal. This is going to backfire. But let's talk about a president here. You know, I did a little monologue at the top of the show, and it was like bizarro world, and I said it's good to be back after a number of days off for the Jewish holidays, and now I find out that President Obama didn't draw the red line. It was really your kid who just started school in kindergarten. He drew the red line with a crayon. And, you know, and Kerry says today also in London, oh, we're not talking about a war. We're not committing an act of war. We're just gonna bomb a country. I mean, it's like, you know, this is a whole new world we're living in. But again, the question has to be asked as I read this story, and there are many like them. We've seen what these so-called rebels do. We've seen the New York Times video, or what they showed us of it, where they lined up the Syrian soldiers they caught and executed them, shot them in the back of the head one by one, then threw them in a mass grave. We saw one of the rebels eat the heart of a Syrian soldier, and now we have. This is repeated throughout the Middle East, but let's stick to Syria. In a village called Malula, it's been taken over by Syrian rebels associated with Al-Qaeda. They've stormed the Christian center, and they made an offer that the Christians really can't refuse. Either you convert or we behead you. And I haven't heard Secretary of State Kerry comment on this or anything else we're talking about. Where's the red line, as you so eloquently asked and wrote in your National Review piece? Where's the red line on Al-Qaeda?
Right. We don't have what I would call bulletproof or airtight evidence that this was Assad. Maybe they have it and it's in some classified form, but what they've presented up till now certainly hasn't been compelling. So you have the people who told you that the Benghazi massacre was caused by a video telling us, just trust us, we really got the goods this time. But let's give them that one. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that on a small scale, Assad has used chemical weapons, even that he's done it more than once. Why is Assad's use of chemical weapons in a Syrian civil war that poses no national security threat to the United States a bigger concern than the rebels' systematic incorporation of Al-Qaeda into their operations, which it hasn't happened once or twice, but happens every single day in every single bit of their forcible operations. And it's not a matter of conjecture or half-proof. It's proved to a fare thee well.
Absolutely. And Andy, first of all, one other thing that these rebels were giving in their offer to the Christians, they were shouting Allah Akbar, which, of course, according to John McCain, as we all know, is the same as Christians saying "Thank God." So let's get that on the record. But
yeah, we've been trying that, Steve. You should try this at home. When someone sneezes, just say Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, I think I might. But here's the thing, Andy. And look, you and I have talked. You've written great books, and of course, as we mentioned, the last one, the most recent one, Spring Fever: The Illusion of Islamic Democracy. And you and I have talked and speculated, and others have talked and speculated, and many others, and most, are afraid to talk the way we talk and speculate. But the question has to be asked: why does Barack Obama support the Muslim Brotherhood, and in this case Al-Qaeda, every chance he gets, everywhere in the world he can? I mean, he did it in Libya, he did it in Egypt, he's doing it here. I mean, and he does it under either, the guise of, oh, we got to overthrow this guy, we got to overthrow that guy, he's a bad guy. The world says, yeah, right on. The media says, yeah, right on. It's about time. And he's getting this thing done, this thing, as I call it, which so many speculated that Barack Obama might do openly if he were ever elected president. He's getting it done in a different way, and the question has to be asked: why?
Well,
why support our enemies?
Yeah, two things about that, Steve. Number one, they don't accept the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood is the enemy. No matter what has happened in, for example, Egypt in the last 2 years, and particularly the last 2 months, they continue to say that the Muslim Brotherhood is part of the moderate element.
Yeah, but Andy, they say that. But does Obama believe that, or is he dumb like a fox?
I think he's doubled down on this, Steve. I'm not here to read the president's mind.
No, I know. Yeah.
I can only go by what he does, and what he does is support the Muslim Brotherhood throughout that region, which means he thinks it's a stabilizing influence, which it clearly is not, and it's clearly anti-American. And I would say this to my friends who are in support of this potential operation on behalf of these elements against Assad. And that's this. There's been a lot of talk about Al-Qaeda, and even by the administration about Al-Qaeda, and I think it's intended to obscure the fact that while some people in the rebel faction deny that Al-Qaeda is with them or part of them, even the leaders of the rebels concede that the Muslim Brotherhood is an important component of the rebel leadership. In fact, one of the vice presidents they just picked is a Muslim Brotherhood guy. They're very open about that. We don't mention the Muslim Brotherhood. Certainly the White House doesn't, and the other people who are proponents of this don't mention it, because that would show that these people who they keep telling us are the moderates that we can support are the Muslim Brotherhood. And they know that the American people, after looking at what's happened in Egypt the last couple of months, are in no way going to accept that.
No, and we're talking Andy McCarthy here on the Steve Malzberg Show. You read him at National Review online, PJ Media, and his great books, New York Times best-selling author. But this piece in particular about the red line on Al-Qaeda that doesn't exist from this president or this administration. And you, as you've stated here, you believe, as you stated also in the piece, that Al-Qaeda is worse by far than the use of chemical weapons. And you know what's interesting? You know and I know that Assad has used chemical weapons before, or they've been used before. Yeah, and they've been used before in Syria. And you know what? Malcolm Hoenlein of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, who wants the attack, said that he spoke to someone in the administration a few weeks ago or whatever and said, these chemical weapons have been used before. He said, yeah, but only a dozen people or so got killed. So in other words, now the total's finally big enough.
Well, yeah, but, you don't want to get into a numbers game.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's insane.
And, it's a progressive fiction that the problem is always the weapon. It's always the arrow, not the Indian.
Right.
It's just, they think that by banning weapons, what they're doing with chemical weapons on the international stage is what they do with firearms on the domestic front, which is, blame the gun, and then you don't have to talk about who's using the gun and what's driving him to use the gun. And it's the same thing on the world stage. They want to now talk about chemical weapons because they think it relieves them of the obligation to grapple with who are the forces on the ground and who would we be helping. And the fact is, we live in a dangerous world where it's important that the right people have weapons of terrifying power. That's the way we keep the peace. So, I think that this whole business about chemical weapons is overdrawn, and that we really ought to be carefully looking at who it is who's going to be helped by this, and also understand that if we stay out of it, these forces continue, which are both anti-American forces, continue to degrade each other. And I must say, it's astounding to me to be accused of being an isolationist. Anyone who's read my stuff over the years knows that I'm about as much of if I'm an isolationist, then Barack Obama is Ronald Reagan, right?
Right.
But people like us were saying Assad's a thug all along, that he's the cat's paw of Iran. We were saying that when Obama was reestablishing diplomatic ties with Assad, when Hillary was calling Assad a reformer, when Kerry was whining and dining Assad, and Pelosi was traveling over there to consult with him on what American policy.
Against Bush's wishes, by the way, yeah.
So we're the ones who have been saying all along that Syria and Iran have to be dealt with in a strong way, and here we have the people who were empowering Assad all along and who say we can negotiate to a good result with Iran, telling us now we need to get tough.
Yeah, pretty bizarre, pretty messed up. Andy, as always, a pleasure. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
Take care. Andy McCarthy.